Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at jonnydelsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Welcome in. Happy Friday. I am back from the Bay Area. Awesome vacation. Went to a Giants game, Johnny. It was not the game in which we were down 9-1 and came back and won. I don't believe anyone was at that game because they all left by the sixth inning. But I was at the game that we were up 3-1 in the ninth and lost 4-3. But I forgot to tell you, I should send it to you so you can show the fans. I met Larry Bear. The CEO, the big cheese of the San Francisco Giants. I met him.
Oh, okay.
Had a quick conversation with him.
This is how little I know about football or baseball. I
get it.
I'm like, I have no idea who you're talking about.
I'm just giving the faithful here a little background on my trip, because most 49er fans in the chat should know a thing or two about the San Francisco Giants. Giants baseball is torture. So I was right behind the dugout, row one, had a couple conversations with some of the players because I was that close. That was really, really cool. Once in a lifetime. And I say once in a lifetime because I'm not going to be able to afford anything else in my life again. But it was super cool. But I'm excited to hang out with the faithful and you. And yeah, Larry Bear has been around the Bay a long time, Core Football says. Super nice guy, super grateful he was to me that I was there. Not me personally, like he knew me. I'm saying like as a fan, because he knows it's been rough. And I told him, hey, I appreciate what he's trying to do with Buster Posey and everything. But today we are not appreciative of a lefty quarterback by the name of Chris Simms. And the more I look at this list, the more that as just a football fan, good morning, Dawn. Just as a football fan, I find it hilarious that like a Super Bowl winning quarterback, I hate the Eagles, but you're telling me that Malik Willis is better than Jalen Hurts. Like, I'll start there before we even get in to number 17 on the list. I just don't, it's so crazy. I know you're going to take this and run from it. Josh Allen deserves to be.
Run from it? No, I'm running straight into it.
Yeah.
So Chris Simms did his 2026 quarterback rankings, his top 40. It was actually 43 quarterback rankings recently. And the reason I bring it up is because I will say, as Cool Football pointed out, that he did actually go on to my co-host on Thursday. I'm on Rob's show on the Gold Standard podcast on Thursdays. We go over a lot of stuff. Well, last week, as everybody here knows, I couldn't do some shows last week. And so he had to bring in that schlep, that no-namer named Chris Simms, who maybe might make it somewhere in sports broadcasting at some point in his life. But he brought Chris Simms on to defend his quarterbacks rankings chart. So watching Rob did a great job of challenging Chris on some of this stuff. I talk a little tongue in cheek on all this stuff. I do respect Chris Sims for what he's done in his career and how he's become a very prominent voice. The fact that we're talking about his quarterback rankings means that he's made it much farther than I have. But I just have issue with the logic behind it and what he used as the main criteria here, because his list is number 1, Josh Allen, number 2, Joe Burrow, then Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford. I think there's not going to be a lot of dyspepsia or argument over that group. It's from there on that it just gets wild. You have at 6 Caleb Williams, then Justin Herbert, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield. That's your 5
Drake
through 10.
May.
Then 11 through 15 is Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Sam Darnold, and Jordan Love. Then
Jordan Love.
your 15 through 20 is Bo Nix, Brock Purdy, Daniel Jones, Malik Willis, CJ Stroud. Then your 21 through 25 is Jalen Hurts, Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, Geno Smith, and Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts is the same as Jackson Dart. Yeah, okay. Like they're one notch away from each other. Right.
And Geno is one spot behind Cam Ward. 26 through 30 is Aaron Rodgers, Tyler Shugg, Joe Flacco, Mac Jones, and Kyler Murray.
Oh.
31 through 35 is Bryce Young, Michael Penix Jr., Fernando Mendoza, and Kirk Cousins. He's got them at 33 and 34. So apparently Tom Brady's got a very difficult situation there. And then Marcus Mariota. Then 35 through 40 is Tua Tagovailoa, JJ McCarthy, Davis Mills, Deshaun Watson, and Jarrett Stidham. And then 41 through 43 is Shedeur Sanders, Ty Simpson, and Carson Beck. Quite the list there. I don't know how you end up with some of these names where they are. Even when putting Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels, who in the last 2 years, when you look at them combined, yes, I see some of the success in there, but putting them ahead of
but for not long enough though. Is my
some of this I just have a really hard time with. I just don't understand like how you can get through that list. But we'll get into challenging why he got to the list he did. I think being in a place where and Zach, I will get to, good to see you there. I will get to that in the second half of the show. But how he gets there, and he's clearly valuing one metric or one trait of a quarterback far higher than anything else. And I just think that's a flawed, too one-dimensional analysis of the quarterback position. It's like saying that if you don't have this, you cannot be in the top 15. No matter what you do, no matter what you've done, that you have to be now a product of the system, the product of the things around you, and therefore you are not in that elite category. That I would take any of these other guys who have this one trait that I would put higher over you, because in my mind, I'm saying that this open just makes it a more complete outlook. I don't know. Having Joe Burrow ahead of Patrick Mahomes is a little bit wild to me. But okay. I mean, having Josh Allen ahead of Patrick Mahomes is a little bit wild to me, just because like you clearly see it through this list that the idea of poise under fire, poise in big moments, and poise in big games does not really mean much when you look at this list, because
now,
you see.
Johnny, here I want to ask you this. Is this list, because then I could we're talking about Burrow and Mahomes. I'm curious. I took this as, if you were brand new to football and you were only going to watch the 2026 season, the y- and we're talking about the top 5, because I don't know, with Mahomes injured and with him not having, you look at his win-loss record, you look at his numbers, maybe there is an argument, and I'm not saying absolutely for sure, but is that what he's going off of? Like, you're not taking what happened from 2020 to 2026. This isn't that list. This is just 2026, who you're going into battle with for only this season. That's how I take it.
Sort of. And he did say, some of this is projection of where you think they will be like week 3, week 4 of this year. And even then, though, I say that kind of hits back at the argument because it's not looking at Patrick Mahomes week 1. It's looking at Patrick Mahomes through the year. And I guess I just look at this and say, okay, we go back to when Tom Brady tore his ACL, he had won 3 Super Bowls and then it tore his ACL, if I'm remembering the timeline correctly. And then
Yeah.
he won 4 Super Bowls after that. And the year he came back from the ACL, they had a phenomenal year. I just look at it and say, I don't see, like, what made Tom Brady a great quarterback was not his left knee. It was what he could do above the shoulders. It was that he actually got better in the biggest moments of the games, that as the playoffs got deeper in the playoffs, Tom Brady got better. Joe Montana got better. Michael Jordan got better in the playoffs. Like, these were guys who fed off that moment, who it honed in their focus, it quickened their mind, it tightened up their mechanics. And so when I look at this and I say, I don't really care. This list to me looks like who is most likely in your mind to win MVP, not who is most likely to win you a Super Bowl. And in the end, we know this through the issues or the struggles that Steve Young had being accepted by the 49ers fan base in the early 90s. If you're not winning that Lombardi, fans usually won't be all that excited about your MVP, because they're going to sit there and they're either going to say, especially if you kind of fold in the playoffs, they're going to say, it didn't matter that you had the passing titles. It didn't matter that you had your MVP. You haven't won the Super Bowls. Like, that was Steve Young's biggest thing, is that 91, 92, 93, phenomenal years statistically for Steve Young, was winning passing titles, was winning MVP, didn't win the Super Bowl. And people kept saying, but get us Joe back. Like, he's not Joe, because he wasn't winning the Super Bowls. And so I just look at this and I think, okay, you're going to have Josh Allen, who has lost multiple times to Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, ahead of Patrick Mahomes. And I say Josh Allen will usually be ahead of Patrick Mahomes in MVP voting on the year because of some of the great plays, but it comes down to the moments of truth. It's like we talked about with the offensive lineman. You can look like an amazing blocker for 2 seconds, but if at 2.2 the running back's coming by and you lose that block, it doesn't matter, because at the moment of truth, when it mattered the most, you didn't execute at that point. And that's what I look at with some of this list. I look at that with Lamar Jackson. I look at that with Josh Allen. I look at that with Justin Herbert. These are guys who have completely failed in the playoffs for the most part. They just have not gotten over that big hump. And so looking at that and saying these guys are so much farther ahead on this, I just can't agree with it. So we'll play a clip of Chris here defending his take on some of this stuff with Rob last week, because Rob pressed him. He said, I think you're looking at this list. It seems like you are just overvaluing arm strength too much and the ability to make some big throws. And this was Chris Simms's response to Mr. Rob Guerrera on what he had to say.
There's 2 things I would say there. First off, when you tell me and say things like, I think you're overblowing a little bit the arm power thing, I'd go, no, I'm not. In fact, I think you're way underblowing it. The best quarterbacks in the history of the sport, the best quarterbacks in the sport right now are making big time power throws and making plays when nothing's there or there's very tight coverage and you got to fit the ball into a tight window with a power throw. And we kind of just, Josh Allen threw another 40-yard laser into a tight window. And we just kind of go and we move on with the game. And I'm sitting there watching film going, holy shit, nobody could do this. And this is unbelievable. And this changed the game. And again, there's some quarterbacks in the league that can do that stuff. And we kind of just go, Matthew Stafford threw another laser down the middle. Oh, no big deal. And it is a big deal. And if you go into the greatest quarterbacks of all time, maybe other than Joe Montana, they all had phenomenal arms.
So he lays it out there and I think that really encapsulates this list, is that big time arm with the big power throws to put the ball on a line down into tight windows is the number one metric for him. And I think that explains his list when you look at that.
Caleb, Drake May. Yeah.
Right. And Justin Herbert, why Jalen Hurts, even though he's won a Super Bowl, been to another Super Bowl, is so far down the list. Why Brock Purdy is 17th. Because he looks at Brock Purdy as probably one of the weaker arms of starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And so he's saying, well, I'm actually ranking this guy really high because of all of the other metrics.
I was just going to say that.
Under this one, man, he's way down the list. And so he just says, I can't put him above 17 or 16 or 15. I just can't put him ahead of some of these other guys. I can't put him ahead of a Jordan Love, a Sam Darnold, a Jared Goff, a Dak Prescott. These guys all have Trevor Lawrence. These guys all have a bigger arm. Caleb Williams can just, flick the ball and it goes 50 yards down the field. And Brock Purdy cannot do that. Justin Herbert's going to be a laser the ball down in there. And I look at that and I say, okay, that's a good argument for who's going to end up on SportsCenter and who's not.
Right. What kind of list is this? And the more you look at it, you do see where he's coming from. It's wrong, but you see where he's coming from. And I actually do see this as, in his warped mind, Chris Sims is actually giving respect to Brock Purdy, because out of all those guys that are strong and he's not, he's still ahead of everyone else of that list. So in his mind, he's like, guys, I'm showing respect to Brock Purdy because
he says, I'm putting him ahead of Aaron Rodgers. I'm putting him in ahead of Jackson Dart, who's got a big arm. I'm putting him ahead of Cam Ward, who's got a huge arm. He's saying, so I've already given him a lot of love in there. And he talked about the biggest reason he thinks that the big arm is so important. And there is, he said, it's not turnovers anymore as the metric of whether or not you're going to win or lose. It's how many explosive plays you get on offense. That in today's era, that it's about explosive plays. And I look at it all and I go, okay, but here's the problem, is that when you say that is the big thing that makes it or breaks it, you are assuming that you have to have that to get explosive plays down the field when defenses are getting tight, and you're discounting throws. Like I look at it and I say, okay, what makes Matthew Stafford such a hard quarterback to defend? Is it that he's got that arm? That is part of it. But we see guys on the list that he wouldn't put in that same category that have a really strong arm too. And I say, okay, why does Matthew Stafford have more consistent success and fewer turnovers? It's because Matthew Stafford plays the game very, very well from the shoulders up. We all know about the no-look passes, right? Are those no-look passes into tight windows? No, they are into open windows, but we say why? Because Stafford was able to look the guy off and then throw where he's not looking. And I say, okay, we're going to give Stafford the credit for that, but I can put on almost any game of Brock Purdy's and show him looking off guys and throwing into an area where a guy looks wide open and he gets an explosive play. I've been going through some of the film this week, even just looking at the Shanahan offense and trying to put together why his offense is so hard to defend. And there was a play against the Cardinals where it was 3rd and 8. And so we're talking about you need explosive plays to win. You have to win when defenses know you're going to throw and coverage is going to get tighter. And it was a 3rd and 8. And we ran a flood concept to the left. And the Cardinals are in cover 4. They have a hook player who can get out there. And Brock keeps his eyes right down the middle of the field. That head stripe is facing right down the middle of the field. And you see that player that could take Jennings's route away. You see him work back towards the middle of the field. And then Brock, his head doesn't turn until literally he's into the throwing motion. That's when the head turns. He hits Jennings. Jennings gets a 30-yard gain on 2nd and 8 or 3rd and 8. And everybody looks at it and they say, oh, man, look, Shanahan just dialed this up. This guy's wide open. He schemed somebody open. And I go, okay, why is that play devalued, but a play from, say, Justin Herbert, where he's not looking that guy off and he's ending up using his big arm to try and get a pinpoint throw into tight coverage on the same play, and it gets 20 yards, we're going to say Justin Herbert's arm made that play happen, and Brock Purdy couldn't make that throw. But we're going to say Brock Purdy was a benefit of the system, and he has Shanahan who's scheming somebody open, and he's getting the ball in there. I look at this and I say, okay, you're going to say that this is about that big time laser down the middle of the field into tight windows, that is a big time mover of the goalposts for you, that sets where things are. And I look at it and I see, okay, you got Sam Darnold here at 14 and you have Brock Purdy at 17. And I'm sitting here saying, okay, here's 2 issues I have with that. You've got to believe that his friend, who he talked about in there, that he was FaceTiming Kyle Shanahan during the season, and how he was talking to him about some other stuff. So, Sims and Shanahan are close. Like, Chris Sims was Kyle Shanahan's quarterback when Shanahan was at Texas playing wide receiver. That was his quarterback. Like, that's why they're close. And so, like, you're going to believe that your good friend, your good buddy, who's a brilliant football coach, kept the better quarterback on the bench to back up Brock Purdy and let that guy go in free agency. And then you paid Brock Purdy $15 million a year more than that guy who was better than him. Make that make sense.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, wait. You're saying that it takes that, in tight games, in these big moments, it takes that laser throw down the middle of the field and that big arm, and just you can access areas of the field that Brock Purdy can't. I went back. I was like, you know what? I got to check this. I went back, and as painful as it was, I went back and I watched the Seahawks-Rams NFC Championship game. You know how many lasers I saw Sam Darnold throw down the middle of the field or into tight coverage that were plays that had any impact on the game? You know how many of those I saw? Zero. There was not one throw you watched Sam Darnold make in that game, who was running nearly the identical system as Brock Purdy, that I look at and I say, oh, no, Brock Purdy's arm can't make that throw. He had 3 deeper throws in that game. There was one that was a go ball that he threw at 2 seconds. It was about 40 yards down the right side of the field. A throw we've all watched Brock make. It was to Shaheed down the right sideline. He made another one, which was about a 30-yard throw down the middle to Jackson Smith and Jigba on a corner post. And I looked at it and I was like, Brock probably makes that at 25 because he gets the ball out more on time on that throw. That was another throw, but it was a layered throw. It was an arcing throw. The other one was a corner post in the end zone that he made to one of their, it was Bobo, I think, one of their tight ends over the middle of the field. It was literally almost the exact same throw we saw Brock make to Brandon Ayuk against the Steelers or we saw Brock make to Demarcus Robinson against the Indianapolis Colts. The ball flight looked exactly the same. And I'm sitting here going, wait a minute. You're going to have this as your metric. The only reason you would put Sam Darnold over Brock Purdy in that situation is because you know that Sam Darnold can pull out that laser if he needs to, but your argument that you have to have that to win in these big moments and winning these big games and winning these times does not prove out with Sam Darnold. Like the biggest throw that Sam Darnold made in that game was a third down late in the game. They're trying to drain the clock against the Rams, and he hit Cooper Kupp on a basic route at 10 yards and on crossing the field. And it's a throw that we've seen Brock make to George Kittle. We've seen him make to Juwan Jennings. We've seen him make to Deebo Samuel. We've seen him make to Brandon Ayuk. We've seen him make to Ricky Pearsall. We've seen him make that exact throw. That was the biggest throw because it needed the most accuracy. It was a really tight window throw, but it needed to be accurate. And I would say the most important thing on this is accuracy. Can you be consistently accurate? I don't care how strong you can throw the ball into a tight window. If you try and throw that ball into a tight window and it's not accurate, it's going to end really, really badly. And so I look at Caleb Williams and I say, Caleb Williams has moments where he can be really accurate, and then he has moments where he can't hit anything. And I look at Drake May and I see a lot of the same issues, that there's an inconsistency in his accuracy. Same thing with Baker Mayfield, same thing with Jaden Daniels, that they are not as consistently accurate as Brock Purdy. And so I say, yeah, they may have a stronger arm, but they are not as consistently accurate, and they don't consistently get the ball to the right spots on the field. So you can say, maybe if you had to take one play where you could say, give me all the options on the table and I'll take these guys. Or if I'm saying, no, I need to actually be able to, I need to have somebody who can give me an answer versus all these different coverages to be able to diagnose it on the field and make it happen. And I'm taking Brock Purdy over any of those guys.
Quiffleball says we need a PowerPoint for this. I do not disagree. This is why Johnny builds up what I call football equity. And what that means is that you can watch Johnny for just one episode and think, oh, he's this or that. But then when you see the entire channel, and again, my most favorite video, I've talked about this, is the video from a couple years ago where Johnny explains why Brock Purdy should be MVP. And the way that he builds equity is by showing a bonehead play at the very beginning of the video and showing how he grows from that and why he's so good. It's not just a clip of, as Johnny says, anyone can string together 10 good clips. You can make the Carson Beck, who is number last on this list. You can put together a video that makes Carson Beck look like the number one quarterback. You can make up a video by doing that, right? And Johnny doesn't do that because this is the whys and hows of the game. So if you are not subscribed right now, if you are not taking your phone and showing people the channel, then I don't understand what you are doing. So quick plug for the channel, Johnny, and of course the website. Thanks to the website. Also the super chats real quick before, and we'll jump back in. We gotta say thank you to Zach, because he comes in every once in a while and just drops absolute
thank you so much.
Holy cow. And made a quick joke about the Rams, because there was content creators saying, if there are 49er fans out there, how could they live with a franchise who lets Brandon Ayuk run their franchise, and that we canceled minicamp just because of BA, which, yeah, freaking right. Okay. And then, so this super chat from Zach says, hey, so y'all, I love the ellipses, the ... like the humor in that. Rams are also being petty toward BA. They also canceled minicamp. Like this is just hilarious, man.
Yeah. Look, almost anybody who's in a city that is hosting some of this World Cup stuff has canceled minicamps because they don't want to deal with the logistics of the World Cup in their cities and in their stadiums and in their facilities, while they're also trying to run these mini camps. I will say, everybody knows I'm not the biggest fan of Grant's takes on a lot of stuff. He does a show with Larry Krueger and Alex Boone, and I will say, Alex Boone had some really good insights into the BA situation and what he's doing there on one of their more recent shows from the perspective of somebody who had dealt with the Yorks during a holdout, during a contract situation, and his perspective on that. And he was very, very clear and gave some really good insight to what actually goes on in there and what the dynamics are like. Just basically, he was like, this guy's being the BA is being the biggest idiot in the world. You do not screw with billionaires. Like, these guys have so much money, and they, like, you think you have leverage on them, and you think you have the power, and all it takes is walking into a room a lot of times, and they say, sit down. You think you're going to tell me what to do? That's not how this works. And because they got a line of lawyers, they got a line of money that that out of spite, because these are very prideful people, they will bury you.
Yeah.
And you start disrespecting them, and they will bury you. One thing that's, as guys, we know is really important among guys is respect. And the moment you start disrespecting another man who has way more resources than you do, and you go to war with them, you will lose. And so
Generational wealth is different than BA being rich. It's
right.
just, it's a completely different concept.
Well, and it, like, he's like, they're not at spite yet, but he's going to push him there.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, "Oh, okay, you think you run the show here? You're going to have this out that we're running from your belt. You're about to feel what a belt looks like." And, he gave an example. He's like, say BA shows up for minicamp. You know what they're going to do? They're going to say, "You know what? We haven't seen you in almost a year. So we need to make sure that you're going to be ready for training camp. We need to be sure that you're going to be ready for the season. We're not just letting you out of your contract. We're not doing that. So here's what you got to do. Training room, 3:30 in the morning. It opens up. You need to be there because we need to make sure that you're evaluated right.
Give them all
And
these
you're going to be,
impossible-
and you're going to be there until 12 p.m. until lunchtime. And while all your friends are going to get lunch, no, you have to now go, and you got to be in the film room to catch up on what you've missed for all this time. And then you've got to be in your position meetings. And then after that, you need to be back in the training room because we need to make sure that you won't get injured if we let you out on the field. And they're going to do this every single day. They're going to say from 3:30 a.m. until 11 p.m., they're going to dictate that you have to be in the training room, or you're going to have to be in a meeting room. And they're going to put it this way, and they're going to do it. And the moment if he shows up at 3:31 on any day, they're going to serve him with a notice that says failure to live up to his contract. And he goes, he gets 5 of those. Then they hand it to the league, and the league will suspend him for a year, like without question. If it's an unexcused absence 5 times, he's suspended for an entire year without pay. The 49ers get their part back, and he's like, they will screw you over, and they can do this forever. If he's sitting there saying that they're running from the belt and you won't even walk in the door, he's like, no, you're about to find out that billionaires can screw you 1,800 different ways. They will figure out every single leverage point they have in that CBA to where they can just bury you as a player. And you're going to end up like, he's like, this is really stupid. So yeah, this idea that the 49ers are canceling this to avoid Brandon Ayuk. Nah, that ain't happening.
So the one tweet that I agree with, real quick, and we'll thank Cayman's Island here, who actually dipped out already. I don't know if you knew that, Johnny. He had to go. But one tweet that I actually agree with, out of 417,000 tweets from Grant Cohn, it's from 2 days ago. My best guess as to what happened and is happening between Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers. 1, he was upset and skipped rehab assignments. Then the 49ers threatened to void his guarantees. He then told them, bet, void them and release me. They quietly agreed to release him after June 1st of this year. They didn't release him. He's livid, and he's posting videos hoping the 49ers will release him. They won't release him. He doesn't want to show up because he sees doing so as bending the knee. He has to show up to get released. They don't want him to show up and don't think he will. Again, this is just a guess. That's honestly, I was on, like, there's nothing that he said there that was like, oh, Grant's just being stupid again. Like, that actually does kind of make sense, especially at the end when he says this is just a guess, because he's never, to me, Grant's never like that. But for him to say, I'm just guessing here, I actually can respect that. But just sad no matter how you look at it. Very, very crazy.
Yeah. I don't think he's far off. I think Brandon Ayuk was just waiting around on this. What his agent said is, hey, just keep your head down. They're going to release you after June 1st. They want to spread out this money over 2 years. They're dead cap, so wait on it. We kind of derailed on this. We'll get back to the quarterback thing here in a minute, but and after that didn't happen, he's now trying to goad the 49ers into doing this, and he's upset. He's like, let me go where I want to go. I want to be out here. I want to be with the Commanders. I want to be with the Commanders. The 49ers are looking at this and saying, look, we're not giving the Commanders the benefit of being able to get you in their building, evaluate where your health is, get you on a health track, get you to learn their offense, get you to practicing with them. Because here's the thing is Brandon Ayuk, he wants to be with Jaden Daniels right now, running routes and practicing like on their own. That's what he wants to be doing for the next 6 weeks. Like that is what he wants to do. The problem is if he does that and his knee is not 100% and he gets hurt while he is doing something away from the 49ers, he has voided any guarantee, like his $27 million bonus that's coming up. The 49ers get to void that. And they can say, no, he's NFI, non-football injury. Because they're going to say this was something that happened away from our facility, away from our activities. We're not liable on that. That was your choice. You did that.
Yeah.
And so he can't do that. His agent is probably telling him, do not do that. The only way you have any sort of money guaranteed going forward is if you are healthy. So you can't get hurt right now. He's probably telling him, keep lax on your training because you need to, don't do anything that could hurt you right now because you are not covered under any sort of CBA rules for any injury protection. Because none of this injury is happening while you're at the 49ers facility. If he's training at the 49ers facility in their offseason program and he gets hurt like a torn pec, they can't just release him. They can't just cut him. They can't NFI him. They have to then put him on the actual injury report and his salary is protected. If he's doing this away from the facility, he's not protected under the CBA. They're going to say that's on you. That's on your trainers. The liability, we don't indemnify you anymore. And so he wants to get into more of this training. He wants to get into some practice. He wants to build time with the Commanders, and they're not going to let him do that. Why? Because we play the Commanders this year. And so it's not even about running from the belt. That's what he's talking about. He knows that's why they're doing this. And he's saying they're running from that belt. And they're saying, no, this is business. We do this with everything. We're sitting here making the statements that George Kittle and Nick Bosa could be back by week 1 when we don't really know. Why? Because we want Sean McVay and his staff right now having to put in the time away from prepping their training camp and the extra work they're going to need to be doing to prepare for these two guys possibly being there. That is why they're never going to say right now, no, probably not week 1. George Kittle may get there and it be like the flight to Australia. And he says, I'm not making the trip like last minute. Or he flies with them and then they say, he doesn't play and they get back and he goes, well, it was never really realistic week 1. It was always realistic more around week 3. I'm at week to week now. But they're not going to give up that competitive advantage. They're not going to do this with Brandon Ayuk and let him go. And he's in here believes that he's got the leverage on this. And it's like, no, until you show up, they're gonna did not report you. And so the idea, Niners
not
said
gonna
he
go
can't
well.
just show up. He has to apply for reinstatement. It's not quite that way. He's not on the retired reserve list. He's on the did not report list. Those are two separate categories under the CBA. The reserve retired list is guys who have officially stepped away, or they say we're stepping away from the game and communicated to the team. The did not report list is somebody who didn't communicate to the team that they're leaving, and they're just AWOL. And that works very differently. The 49ers, when they put him on that, they recoup all the cap space that they had, even prorated bonuses. And so until he walks in the door, they did not report him. And if they really want to screw him, if that happens, they can sue him for his signing bonus and get all of it back and say, you know what? You paid taxes on that already? Too bad. I want all of it back.
Yeah.
$48 million. I want all of it back, every penny. Oh, you bought a house with that? Well, guess what? You better put it on the market and try and get that money back, because we are suing you and you will owe us money for the next 20 years of your life that you will never be able to pay back, because you're not getting paid by anybody $20 million a year. Nobody's doing that. So you wanted to play this game. You think we're running from the belt. You walk in the door, we're going to stick you in the training room for 18 hours a day. And if you aren't there, then we are suspending you and we're suing you for your signing bonus. And you're not getting paid this year. So what Brandon Ayuk is doing is completely foolish. It's dumb. And it just shows that there is somebody who is not thinking accurately or correctly here, that there is too much emotion. And this tells you why people say the 49ers should have done better during the contract negotiations. This tells you that this is a player that cannot separate emotions from the business. And that is why everything went so haywire, is because everything. And just remember, this happened with Deebo Samuel as well. They're emotional guys that once the 49ers started pressing hardball and playing business, they made it personal. And that is why this derailed as quickly as it could. You don't see this kind of nastiness happen with George Kittle, with Nick Bosa, with Trent Williams. Trent Williams held out until like 2 days before the start of the season at one point, and it didn't get like this. Why? Because Trent was standing on business. Nick Bosa was standing on business. And so, yes, it's hard to do, but this is a guy who cannot separate the emotions from the business. But we'll get back to the quarterbacks here.
Yeah. So I think with the list, it is clickbaity. There is some rhyme or reason a little bit to it. We just simply, and a lot of others, do not agree with the rhyme or reason. But what is your biggest takeaway from the list and Brock Purdy?
Well, okay, so here's the biggest I think thing I can show that says this list is just built on a house of cards, that it falls apart pretty quickly, and it shows that. And I get it. That's 40 guys. That's a lot of guys' film to dive into, and that's a lot of guys to remember their film and remember everything. And you're going to remember the things that stood out the most. And he did say, this list is really, really tight, but you have Caleb Williams at 6 overall. And so there's this thing that happens with Brock Purdy where it's like, well, he's got Kyle Shanahan, who's, one of the best offensive minds, and probably maybe the best offensive mind in football. And he's got a strong running game, and he's had playmakers around him. And so those parts make it hard to say, well, Brock is making these plays happen. And then I say, okay. But Brock also had 10 touchdowns in 2 weeks last year. And then what's always the retort with that? Yeah, but what defenses was he playing against? And I go, oh, okay. So just so we're clear, it's a knock on you if you have a really good play caller and offensive designer. That's a knock on you. It's a knock on you if you have good players around you. So just so we're clear, there's a knock on you for that. And there's also a knock on you if you play a really bad defense. So a defense that really struggles. So those are all three knocks, okay? So we've agreed that is the metrics, that if we have to use consistent measuring points to be able to figure out who is who. And I say, okay, well, let's take Caleb Williams at 6 overall, that you have him, and Brock Purdy is 17th. And we're going to say, okay, great play caller, great play designer. Ben Johnson, we're going to say he's not a great play designer or a great play caller. Is he or isn't he? If you look at coaches where during their tenures, they have the highest percentage of their tenure is a top 10 offense, you're looking at like Kyle Shanahan, Ben Johnson, Andy Reid. Like those are the three guys in currently coaching that have the highest percentage. And Ben Johnson's because the last 3 years, he has been a top 10 offense in whatever he's coordinated or head coached. So you look at his 2 years with the Lions, they were a top 10 offense. Last year with the Bears, top 10 offense. Okay, they are committed to the run. That was one thing that Ben Johnson brought to the Bears. We are going to run the ball, and we are committed to run the ball. So, okay, so now we have to put the same black marks on Caleb Williams as we did Brock Purdy for this, right? The red pen's coming out and saying, here it is. Here's a mark on your report card. And we're going to say, okay, whose weapons did you take last year over the 49ers, or between the two? Are you going to take Caleb Williams's playmakers like DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, other guys, or the 49ers with Sky Moore and Juwan Jennings? I'm taking those Bears. I look at the offensive lines. The Bears had a top 5 offensive line.
Oh yeah, lineman of the year. They had too.
They had lineman of the year. and Brock Purdy, like we've all said, Brock Purdy has never had a great offensive line. So suddenly I'm looking at this and I'm saying, whoa. So the metrics that we say are knocks, we're gonna mark a guy down. Caleb Williams has the same and actually a couple more than Brock Purdy had last year. You say, well, wait, so the Bears defense wasn't great last year. Nobody's saying the Bears defense was great last year. And then we look at that game, the 49ers against Bears, and I look at it and I say, okay, well, Caleb Williams is 25 of 42. 25 of 42. Brock Purdy was 24 of 33. So he had 1 fewer completion in 9 fewer attempts. Well, that tells me one guy's more accurate than the other. It tells me the yards per attempt is higher. The Brock had 3 touchdowns. Caleb Williams had 2. Brock ran for 2 touchdowns. Caleb Williams ran for none. Brock had a 118.6 quarterback rating. Caleb Williams had a 100.3. And then I look at it and I say, whoa. Okay, but people say, well, yeah, but that Bears defense, it's not good. And I say, and the 49ers pass defense last year was good at that point?
Yeah.
Whoa, okay. Let's back the truck up on this and say, who did the 49ers play the week before that Bears game? They played the Indianapolis Colts with 45-year-old Phillip Rivers, who had not played football in 5 years. And what did Phillip Rivers do against that 49ers pass defense?
In the first half,
you know what Phillip Rivers' games were? It was 23 of 35 for 277 yards. Phillip Rivers had a higher completion percentage against our passing defense than Caleb Williams did. He threw for the same amount of touchdowns as Caleb Williams did. Phillip Rivers' passer rating was 97 in that game. Caleb Williams was 100. So we're saying that Caleb Williams against the same defense that had the 32nd ranked pass rush, that had D Winters, who got traded for a 5th round pick, and Tatum Bethune as your starting linebackers, that had no ability to rush the passer. That was the passing defense that Caleb Williams went against, and he had a 100 quarterback rating. Phillip Rivers had a 97. 4 weeks before that, against that 49ers pass defense, Jacoby Brissett played the 49ers. It was 49ers Cardinals. Jacoby Brissett went 47 of 57. He had 10 incompletions on almost 60 dropbacks. Threw 2 touchdown passes. Had a 96.8 quarterback rating. Jacoby Brissett, who Chris Sims put Jacoby Brissett at the 25th overall quarterback. Jacoby Brissett had a better game against that same 49ers defense than Caleb Williams.
But he's number 6.
But he's 6th overall. And so people say, well, the defense that they're playing against, Brock had these great games, but they were playing against bad defense. I say Caleb Williams played against one of the worst pass defenses in the league last year because the 49ers had no pass rush. They had linebackers who couldn't cover. And he has one of the best offensive playmakers in there. And Brock scored 5 touchdowns and Caleb Williams scored 2. And we're going to sit here and say that Caleb Williams is the 6th best quarterback in the league and Brock Purdy is the 17th. That makes 0 sense. When you look at that logically and break that down, the only thing is that you have big arm playmaking at weighted to 80% of the metrics. If you say, okay, we're going to break this down, we have arm strength, we have arm accuracy, we have ability to make plays with your legs, we have ability to read the defense and make the accurate throws, and then poise under pressure. If you put those 5 metrics and you say, okay, out of 100%, where each one is 20%, and we're going to take some away and we're going to weight this now to different things, you have to have like arm strength weighted to 60 or 70 percent of that makeup to make the list that he did. And so when he says, no, your people are way underblowing this arm strength thing, I say, no, you are like, clearly you have to so overblow it at this point to make that list that's where you're at. And you're too close to you're too close to it to be able to see that. So it just is, it comes from that he's rolling and he's got that, Superman arm flail out throw that goes to the back of the end zone over 2 guys into this throw that you really do look at and you say, maybe there's only like 3 guys in the history of the NFL that can make that throw. But I say, okay, obviously the ability to make that throw has not been the thing that has led to consistent success. It might win you one game in an instant, but all the other metrics become more consistent to prove winning. And it just shows throughout like the history of the league. And so sitting here saying, well, all the great quarterbacks had big arms, I go, yeah, but very few of them are really like when you're talking about these lasers down the middle of the field, very few of them required that to actually win. Like that was a bonus that they had, kind of a cherry on the top for certain times. When I look back to Tom Brady against the Falcons in the Super Bowl, comes back from 25 points down. When you look at the big throws he made in that game, there was not a single one of them that was a laser down the middle of the field.
Right. And a lot of it was luck. That Edelman, come on. Like,
well, and you have that, but that wasn't a laser, right? That was a layered throw
right.
that comes across the field. Another one was a corner route. Another one was these were all layered throws to Gronk down the other side.
Sure.
The play to win the game was a dump off pass in the flat to his running back. Like I'm saying, the bigger thing was he knew where to go with the ball at all times. Like that's the thing that made it up. So all of that to say, I think this list is completely superfluous. And like I've said, these lists and why I want to break down is it shows that clearly it indicates what people, it reveals more about what the ranker thinks about quarterbacks and what means more to them than anything. And this shows that for Chris Sims, it is clearly about the ability to make the really big wow on a line throw. That layered throw down the middle over a guy who's, it's 1 inch over his outstretched arm and it's to Juwan Jennings into that void. That's not the wow throw to him. That is for an Alex Smith. Alex Smith, who was on with Larry Krueger, had a great interview. Go watch it. Always love to hear Alex's take on a lot of things. For him, he looks at it and he knows, he's like, and remember, Alex was a guy coming out of college that was known for having a pretty strong arm. It was after he had the multiple arm injuries that there were questions about his arm strength. But he looked at what Brock can do with the layered throws. And he's like, people have no idea how hard that is. Like that is insanely hard. And that takes an insane level of anticipation and trust and willing, like to know that you've got to put that ball out there, that somebody's going to be there. That is not common. He's like, that is extremely rare in the NFL. So, it always reveals more about that, but we'll move on to our next topic.
Yes. Well, it's kind of close because Cornelius Merritt, thank you for the super chat, and asks, our wide receiver room is arguably the best in the league right now. I mean, it's definitely not the best, but Brock has proven he's great with way less. So what say you? Possible MVP?
I think, much like 2023, there was just it hit a point where people they couldn't keep continuing to just like brush off the success that Brock Purdy was having that year. at some point they had to at least give him a token recognition that we've got to have him at least in consideration, because you cannot have a guy with the kind of performance that he's had this year and not at least have him in the conversation. They weren't ever going to give it to him, but we at least have to keep him in the conversation. Brock will always be fighting that narrative. For me, I don't think Brock will be able to win an MVP, like a regular season MVP, until he wins a Super Bowl MVP. Like, that's just going to be the nature of it. I think he could put up MVP type numbers, but as far as winning that award has to come after a Super Bowl MVP, because at that point, then he will have something else on his name than 7th round pick guy who is a product of the system, guy who can do a lot of things, but you might not be able to do what you could with some other guys. Because once he proves that, then people will say, okay, he has climbed the mountain and he's here and he's got that credential behind his name. And so that will give him more validity in the MVP voters' eyes. Do I think he could be MVP worthy before then? Absolutely. When you look at, when we talk about our wide receiver room, I think the argument you have to make when you say arguably the best in the league right now, because remember, we're talking about a wide receiver room like the Vikings, who have Justin Jefferson, Addison, and Juwan Jennings. That's a pretty darn good wide receiver room. Right. Those two guys, and then having that third and Juwan as your third guy is a pretty strong wide receiver room. You look at what what the Rams had last year with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Now, Devontae Adams is 10 months older than Mike Evans right now, but man, that's a pretty darn good wide receiver room. Yeah, you look at what Cincinnati has with T. Higgins and Chase, and you go, that's a pretty darn good wide receiver room. We're not at that level yet. When you look at what the Seahawks have with Jackson Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp, that's a pretty good wide receiver duo. And they did a lot for Sam Darnold last year. Like, that's a pretty darn good wide receiver room. When you look at the Houston Texans with Nico Collins and Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, that's a pretty darn good wide receiver room. So, hard for me to look at that and say that's not really, really good. You can even make the argument with the Buccaneers with Godwin and Emeka Egbuka. That's even losing
Evans
and losing Evans. Like, that's a pretty darn good wide receiver room. So like, I look at this and because the only proven guy you have in that wide receiver room is Mike Evans. And he's still got question marks about his age and coming off a year with injury. Now, George Kittle talked about it. He's just cooking everybody at minicamps, which doesn't surprise me. But Ricky Pearsall has potential to be a 1,400-yard receiver. The separation, the explosiveness, what we've seen, absolutely. Dejon Stribling has huge potential. Jacob Cowing, with his speed, his juice is just different, but we haven't been able to see him on the field. The 49ers have the potential to have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the league, but they're not there yet.
Yeah.
And so they've got to go prove it on the field. There is the potential for it, but until they are, they aren't. So that's what I see with that.
Thanks for the super chat. Let's get you out of here on this. Are we going to add a vet, Johnny?
There's been a lot of talk to the 49ers trade for Alex Highsmith from the Steelers. They just paid her big, and they've got TJ Watt under contract. And he's a big time cap number this year. Like, are you going to be able to they're not going to be able to pay him. They want to trade him. Is Max Crosby still on the market? Is that a potential situation there? Should the 49ers trade for Max Crosby? That was immediately what popped up after the Rams traded for Myles Garrett. You've got to go and you got to go get a guy that can do that. There's Von Miller and there's Joey Bosa that are out there. Joey, they clearly would like to play with Nick. And what's fascinating though is that Nick, instead of sitting there, being like, we got guys that they got some work to do, and they're young guys. They're we're excited with what they might possibly do, but they got to show it on the field first. Like, that's the kind of talk you put out there if you're trying to give a signal to your brother and his agent that says, Just hold on a minute. The 49ers are going to be giving you a call here pretty soon. Because they need to bring somebody in. That's not that would be what you say. You don't come out and say, man, this kid is his first 2 steps are crazy. He eats up grass. He's much more refined than you would expect for a rookie coming out. Like, he's talking up Romello Height. And so when you see that, that's almost like, Joey, if you want to get, just letting you know, if you want to get with the 49ers, you can't sit on 10 million. The price is going to be 6. You got to come down, bud. Like that's kind of a brotherly way of saying that in the media. And so, like, this thing of, okay, maybe they go and get Joey Bosa. I will tell you, the 49ers have almost surely reached out to Joey. And here's their handshake agreement is, look, you don't want to show up to minicamp. You don't want to show up to OTAs. You want to be able to go do whatever you are, just like they asked. And that was kind of the info that Nick let out, was he had no interest in being at OTAs, being at a minicamp, being in an off-season program. Because they asked him about, what's going on with Joey and everything. He says, I don't think his mind's anywhere close to caring about football right now. He's working on his golf game. Right? What's he saying? He's saying, look, he's telling the 49ers this. If Joey's not signing right now, he's not showing up to any mandatory mini camps, which, yes, they cancel them, but he's not showing up to OTAs. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to go be able to take his trips. He doesn't want to show up for the first week of training camp. He doesn't want to do the check-in, doesn't want to go through all that stuff. He wants to be able to stay. He's not moving out here. He's going to come out here and stay during the season, and then he's going to go back home. So he's not coming out here 3 weeks earlier than he needs to. And I remember, like, Linval Joseph used to be a guy who it seemed like every year somebody would call him up in December and add him to the team, like a contender that had an injury at defensive tackle. And Linval Joseph, like, made a career the last 5 years of it this way, that he didn't go through offseason, didn't go through OTAs, didn't go through training camp, didn't go through half the season. And then he'd get signed near the end of the year, get almost regular season money because he was getting playoff checks. And then, and he would have to sign for the vet minimum, right? Or like the vet salary. So he'd get paid. He would get all this stuff. And then he only played for 2 months, and then he'd be back on vacation, right? Like, he got it down.
Sign me up.
That is what's going on. Like, and you're starting to see that. Like, Kendrick Bourne was a guy like that. Like, he's out there, didn't really want to do all the training camp stuff and OTAs and everything. 49ers sign him while he's available in week 2. Cleveland Farrell, same thing, right? Cleveland Farrell is going to do that again this year. He's going to sit there and be out there. And then if there's a team with an injury at some point, which somebody's going to get an injury, then he'll come on, but he's going to skip OTAs. He's going to skip training camp. He's going to skip mini camps. He's going to skip all that stuff. And when a team needs him, they'll call him up. The 49ers have this agreement with Joey. Like, we're going to get through this. Plus, the 49ers want to see Romello Height through training camp. They want to see him through a few games. They want to see that. And then if they're at a point where, like, okay, we like him, but we don't love him for a push this year, now we're going to give Joey a call. And we'll say, Joey, come on. We've agreed to this. Let's go. Either that, or they're going to look at this and Joey's price tag is 8. They're going to get through training camp and they're going to be like, all right, Joey, it's 4. Take it or leave it. Because we do really like this other guy. And that's the way it's going to be. And then he'll either sign or he'll wait for an injury to happen somewhere. And then he's going to sign somewhere. Same thing with Von Miller. The Max Crosby trade, Alex Heisman trade, those are going to be 2 similar situations. The 49ers, if there's a move, they're going to wait until week 9, week 10, week 11, like right up to the trade deadline. This is not happening now. The 49ers, if you're going to give away draft capital, you want to see who exactly you have that you've already spent draft capital on before you make that move. If you get into it, 5 games into the year, Romello Height has like 2 pressures and no sacks or 1 sack, then they're going to look at it and they're going to say, okay, let's give the Raiders a call here and see what they're willing to move. The Raiders, they're actually like 2-5 right now, 2-4. Crosby's doesn't want to rot his career away right in there. He knows that this is a prime chance for him to go get a ring. the rebuild isn't as, advanced as they thought it might be at this point. So Crosby wants to move. The Raiders are willing to move. Like, that becomes your better moment, the better leverage point for them to go get a Crosby, to go get an Alex Highsmith. Same thing, Aaron Rodgers, he blew out a calf or a shoulder 2 weeks into the year. The Steelers are tanking. They've got to load assets up for the future. You might even be able to trade for a TJ Watt, right? Like, that's a guy that you can trade for, because he's not going to fit into a rebuild plan with the Steelers. So, like, do I expect them to add a vet? I think at some point they will, but it's not happening before training camp. It's probably not happening until halfway through training camp at this point, or beyond. So this kind of, people bloviating about that they need to go make a move. They got to do something. They got to do it now. They're just sitting on their laurels. No, they're not. Like, this is the approach that it's going to take. And it's one that actually does make sense when you look at it. So I don't expect to hear any sort of like trade or big signings that the 49ers make for the next couple months. So that'll really quiet down the news cycle, unfortunately, in some senses.
Right.
But we got a lot of other stuff we'll get to during that time.
Yeah, we don't know the when, but on this program, you can be sure that the why and the how will always be covered. You like that little segue? Was that?
I
was that
do.
pretty-
I do. I
I
like
was,
that.
I was
man.
pretty proud of that. Make sure you wave hi to Gemma, please.
Hi, Gemma. That's
Okay,
my daughter.
Get that
Some of
taken
you have
care
seen
of.
her on the show before. She shows up every once in a while.
Get that taken care of for the dad move there. Love it. Okay, so yes, we will be around to cover whatever is happening. Again, the whys and the hows. Be sure to check out jfa49.com if you have not already as well, Johnny. That is always a big thing, right?
Yes. And so I also wanted to let everyone know, I'm hoping I'll get to Ashton Davis on Monday. I was going to try and do it today, but it's just really hard. Like, I know Dante Whitner said that he's probably coming in as competition at safety. I don't see it. I'm through 5 games or 6 games, and I've pulled 8 clips, and none of them are good. There's very little there. I'm not seeing a lot of juice. I'm not seeing a lot of involvement. I'm not seeing him, like any traits that I'm like, wow, okay, yeah. No, and so it's been hard to get through his film. Honestly, it's just I watch a game and then I'm like, I got to watch some of our offense. I got to get away from this. It's just like nails on chalkboard to get through this whole game of all this stuff. That's there. I also want to let everybody know we have some merch that is in the works. I want to process some orders first before I see to make sure that the quality is coming in. It's from the same company that Sports Idiot Nation gets all of their merch from. But we do have some exciting merch that is coming around the bend here, coming around the corner. That I think I at least hope that people would be interested in. So here's a quick look at some of the merch that we have in the Johnny Dale's Football Academy store right now. We got some hats. I got a duffel bag here that's got the IXOXO SF on there. Got magnets with it. Got a tumbler. Got a hoodie with the Johnny Dale's Football Academy on the back, on the front and the back. Got this one. This is a product I've been wanting to do for a while and hadn't been able to get it out for a bit. But if you know, this is the catch sprint ride option to Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone. There you can get it on a hoodie. You can get it on a t-shirt. I got it on a t-shirt. You can get it on a drawstring backpack. With
that goes hard. That is crazy. Love it on the little backpack.
With sprint ride option there. Got all these different things. We're gonna have mugs. We got different things. Got a lightweight shirt, long sleeve shirt here with it on the back, a little JDFA on the front. So we've got some options here. You can do it in army green, in natural, vintage white, silver. I like the athletic heather. That's the one I like on there.
Yeah.
You can get these, rep the Bay and know, if you know. So that's the merch that we got coming down the pipeline. If there's more things in there that you would like, that you say, okay, these are products that I'd love to have in the merch store, let me know. Got more that are going to be in development, but I need to process through the orders, make sure that these are going to print out correctly when they get here. So I've got things on order. Once that happens, I'll be sharing where it is, where you can go get the Johnny Dell Football Academy merch. So hopefully those are things that y'all really like. I've been wanting to do the Sprint Right option shirt for years, and it was just having a hard time finding the right place that could print it and the design that would work right. So want to do one for some different Super Bowl shirts, like John Taylor in the back of the end zone, Super Bowl 23, Jerry Rice down the middle of the field, Super Bowl 29, the catch 2, want to do some of these different ones. So Quiverball says the deli meats. I can't patent a lot of these things. I don't think, but I do need to trademark. I do need to trademark my name. So if you're a trademark lawyer, let me know. I could use some help.
You'll get a free t-shirt
with
out
all
of
that.
it.
Yeah, I'll get you a free t-shirt. I would love to send the Sprint Ryan option t-shirt to like George Kittle and Joe Montana. Like, I think that would be so awesome to have Joe Montana wear that t-shirt, right? Like that. I mean, would that not be awesome? I'm going to see if I can send it to him somehow. I'll figure it out. Because I think it would just be dope. Like, not even because it's my shirt. I just think that as an idea, as a shirt, would be so boss. Like,
yeah.
You're the court. Like, this is my play. Like, this is the greatest play in football history that I made it, and here it is. So yeah. Anywho,
love it. If you know, you know. Love it. So we will hopefully be back regular schedule Monday and Friday, but make sure you hit the notification bell. Make sure you are taking your phone and showing people the channel. So in the meantime, in between time, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Niners.